Hello and welcome back to Chasing Excellence, a show about chasing what truly matters. My name is Patrick Cummings. As always, I am here with Ben Bergeron. How are you, bub?
I'm doing good. It's springtime in New England, so
no, nothing better.
Don't want to be influenced by external factors, but I'm weak and I am. Sun makes me happy.
I'm sitting next to an open window. I can hear birds chirping. I'm right there with you. Welcome back, everybody, to the show. This week, we're going to do something a little bit different for us. This is kind of one of those things that I was excited about playing with as we got into this new format, as we started playing around with slightly different episodes than we've done before. A few episodes ago, a listener sent us a question, and inside of that question was a quote from Bruce Lee. I'm just going to read it again real quick for folks to remind them. Quote, "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why they call it spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself, and you can change your life. What you're not changing, you're also choosing." We're not going to talk about that quote anymore. We did talk about that a little bit when it first came up, but it did get me on a little bit of a Bruce Lee rabbit hole, and I ended up on YouTube watching some videos of him and from him, not obviously from him because this was a long time ago, but I found a couple of videos that had interviews with him. And I thought, oh man, wouldn't it be fun to take some of these little bits out of these conversations and just bring them into Chasing Excellence and use them as fodder, use them as sparks for conversation between you and I. So that's what we've got this week. We've got 3 quotes that I've pulled out from Mr. Bruce Lee. We're going to listen to them, and then we are going to just kind of talk through them and see what they spark in us as we go. Little bit of context to Bruce Lee. I know most people will know the name, but he was a renowned martial artist, philosopher, and actor, widely regarded as one of the most influential martial artists of all time. He was born in 1940 in California, but was raised in Hong Kong. He's best known for his creation of something called Jeet Kune Do. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a martial arts philosophy drawing from different combat disciplines and is often credited with paving the way for modern mixed martial arts. He was an actor who was famous for roles in Enter the Dragon and Fist of Fury, and he died at the young age of 32 in 1973. All right, so that's just a little bit of context. I think we're just going to get right into it again, and we've got 3 quotes. So we're going to hear from Mr. Bruce Lee here, and then we will, on the back end of it, we'll chat about what we think about it.
When I first learned martial art, I too have challenged many established instructors. But what I have learned is that challenging means one thing, is that what is your reaction to it? How does it get you? Now, if you are secure within yourself, you treat it very, very, very lightly, because you ask yourself now, am I really afraid of that man? Or is that man, do I have any doubt within me that he's going to get me? But if I do not have such doubt, and if I do not have such fear, I would certainly treat it very lightly, just as today the rain is going on strong, but tomorrow maybe the sun is going to come out again.
Here's the one little line that I thought maybe we can just start with. What I've learned is that challenging means one thing. It's that, what is your reaction to it? How does it get you? I love that. How does it get you?
It's so good. That's something that we talk a lot about here. First off, Bruce Lee's awesome. I went through a mini Bruce Lee phase and kick. I think nice. A lot of adolescent boys do when they maybe it's different now because I don't know. He was more. We didn't have Conor McGregor and these kind of. He was essentially the guy that branched off from a traditional kung fu setting and was like, no, there isn't one way to do this. We could do this a whole bunch of different ways, and really it did challenge a lot of the status quo. So. He's really cool. He's awesome. So I agree. That's the thing I took out of that quote as well is basically how do you react when you're challenged? If you're secure in yourself, if you're secure in your beliefs, your values, who you are, your direction in life and your integrity, when somebody challenges you, which is what he's saying, like he's challenging these people. And what he saw was like different people responded different ways. And like the true masters took his challenges very lightly and probably listened and maybe laughed at some and probably took some to heart, but it was light. A challenge coming at you, if you are where we are all striving to be, all challenges should be fairly light. Mm-hmm. And obviously some are going to be easier to feel like they're light than others. The opposite of that is if somebody comes up to you and challenges any sort of your beliefs or identity, if it hits you hard, it should be a sign to ourselves that we still have some work to do. And when I heard this quote the first time, I didn't pull a lot out of it, But between hearing this for the first time and now someone has challenged me, and it's like, wow, how do I, and I can say I tried really hard to take it lightly, but it was really, really hard to the point where I didn't take it lightly. And it kept me up for a night or two staring at the ceiling. Oh my gosh. So I'll give a little context to this is beyond CompTrain and CF&E. In the summer, my wife and I, Heather, we run a sailing program down on the Cape. Mm-hmm. And it's our second year doing it. And the first year, we just inherited the staff. The staff turned out to be not the staff that we want to work with going forward for a variety of different reasons. Over the winter, we let go of the majority of the instructors that were working for us and hired new ones. Well, this is a really small, tight-knit community. One of the dads of one of the kids that we let go sent me a text. I've never talked to the guy before. Sent me a text and laid out a bunch of mean things that he thought I did wrong, and then finished the text by saying this, and I'll just kind of give you a little bit, say what, here's his words. You obviously have not managed people before. It's very cowardly approach and shows a complete lack of leadership skills as well as common courtesy. While my son is upset, I'm actually glad he's not working for you, as you are a very poor leader. When I got that, it was like, how am I going to take this? If I can take this lightly, that would be cool. I tried as best I could. And I try to put things in perspective and go, wow, what's he going through to be able to lash out at something like that? And you work all the different tools and stuff. But eventually you get to where Bruce Lee is, or as you call him, Mr. Bruce Lee. And you go, I just need to take challenges lightly. And I came across another quote, which I really, really liked. And it was from a Stoic. It was, when we see a drunk man hitting a castle with a stick, we don't call it an attack. We call it amusement. And to me, that's a really good, okay, when we get attacked, when we get challenged, we so badly want to say this is an attack, when it's not. It's just some guy out there that, would you take advice from that person? Would you want to partner with that person or whatever it might be and go, we don't need to get all wrapped up into it. We can take this lighter. So, the punchline is, after a few days and talking myself through this, I was able to take it a lot lighter, but certainly triggered me in the beginning because I wasn't at the point where Bruce is talking about, where he's a mixed martial arts master. I'm definitely not there. So I still do take some challenges too heavily. And I would love to be able to get to the point where we continue to work on this with the right awareness of where we are and, on the spectrum of how much can we handle, handle hard better. Challenges are hard. Some are easier than others, but some are going to knock us off course and knock us off center. And then the idea is, don't let it pull you down in the sewer cycle. Just try to use the tools to get ourselves back on the straight and narrow. There's always going to be these things that knock us off course. Always. And they're a challenge. And that's what it's here for. And how do we handle those challenges? As Bruce says, if you can handle them lightly, then we're going to be able to stay the course.
There's a difference, and I think it's an important difference, and I'm curious how you navigate it, between taking something lightly or trying to take it lighter and not caring. Because those two things, I can imagine myself, I can imagine others saying, I'm going to take this lightly, and really what they're saying is, I'm going to do my best to not care. And I don't think that's what he's saying, and certainly I don't think it's what you're saying in the story you just told of, it took me a few days, but I got to lightness, lighter than it was. And I don't think it was screw this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Clearly he doesn't know, right? So there's an interesting paradox there. It's not brushing it aside. It's actually sitting with it long enough that its weight gets lighter. Not that you just simply are not paying attention as much. Yeah.
So maybe just to complete the story of the text, it didn't end there, right? I took the time to write what I thought was a very mature response that I vetted across not only my wife, who runs the program with me, but I shared it with the head of the organization and said, do you think this is an appropriate response? She was like, that's amazing. You got to send that. Sent it. There's another back and forth, and then he just came with a lashing, like personal attack, like crazy. So I was like, all right, that's where we're going to end there. So it's not, to your point, I didn't just go, oh, he's a jerk and move on. It's not apathy. It's not ignoring. It's not complacency. What it is, though, is not allowing anything than your best self to come forth. Because if you come forth with some sort of triggered mentality, you're not going to get to where you want to be. You got to get rid of the angst and the anger so you can bring your true self. There's different brain waves that your body's going to operate in. And we've talked about this from whether you want to talk about the, alpha, gamma, beta brain waves, or you want to talk about it in terms of a distracted state, which is your brain's going like, we're under attack, to a focused state, to a flow state. We want to be in a flow state when we're doing these things. That's your best self coming forth. You can't be there when you feel like you're being attacked and being judged and there's super high consequences. So that's why he's saying take it light. If you can take it light, your brain doesn't go into this fragmented state and you are able actually to bring your best self. There's a graph that represents this. On one side of the spectrum, the far side, the bottom left side is complacency. In the middle is competence. And on the far side is excellence. When you start to see, well, if you just don't care, that's the opposite of what we want to do. Right. It's not about not caring. It's about bringing your very, very best to this moment. Now, if you just do your thing to respond, but you respond in the way you want to, that's competence. Like you're doing the thing, but are you doing it to the very best of your abilities? No, because you're taking this attack too personally. I keep on saying attack. I shouldn't say it. That's challenge. As Bruce says, he's actually talking about truthfully in like a man-to-man, like potentially in a combat situation.
Yep.
But we should zoom out of that. This doesn't necessarily mean even person to person. This could be a challenge of any sort, right? I just had a conversation with one of our members who's going through one of the most horrific things that, he has two girls under the age of 2. Both of them are on feeding tubes for different reasons. And one 10 days ago got diagnosed with leukemia. So there's a challenge. And it's a really big one. Is that going to knock you off centered? Yup. Is it going to knock you off center for a day? Yes. 2 days, 3 days, 4, probably. Are you going to get back on the straight and narrow and then get knocked down again? Yup. Are you going to have moments of times where you just need to be completely emotional? Yup. That's all part of it. But what we need to do is recognize that we can't get caught up in the sewer cycle and the victim mentality and or live in a place of complacency. You got to bring your best. And he's got to bring his best to this. Is it always going to be the best version of him? Absolutely not. It's the best version of him for where he is. You do what you can with what you got for where you are. He's going through the shit right now. That is the deal. It is super hard. And we're going to have a lot of really guttural emotional responses, which are good. Don't show you don't care. You're supposed to care. But don't let it spin into something it's not. You still got a job to do, which is to live out your best life and create a place where they can feel safe and where they can feel cared for. Not misplaced optimism. That's not the deal, but realism. And ideally, we get to edge into some competitor mindset. So I'm not saying take it lightly in the sense of, just leukemia. Like no parent ever is going to be able to do that, ever. And they shouldn't try to. But lightly in the face of you go, this isn't going to own me. This isn't going to consume me. Not in the sense that it might take up all my thoughts for the next X number of months. That's okay. But it's not going to eat me up. It's not going to eat me from the inside. That's taking it heavily versus lightly.
And in the quote, the part that I think speaks to that, or at least part of that, is the idea of fear. Do I really, and I think he said, do I really fear this man? And you can, again, it's not always an individual that is the challenge. And I think it's really important, and I think it's really hard to recognize, how do I respond to the challenge, not how do I respond to the fear of the challenge? Because when we focus too much on the fear of the challenge, I think it's when we don't bring our best selves to the situation, to the challenge itself. And I think that's part of what this lightness is I'm not going to respond to my fear of this thing. I'm going to respond to this thing. And that's wildly different.
there's this, really popularized that fear stands for an acronym. And I'm not the first person to say this. It's false expectations appearing real. What fear essentially is prognosticating doomsday scenarios. So what you want to do is stay right where you are, right here, right now. Don't try to project what is the best case, what is the worst case. Don't try to over-index on outcomes that we don't know are going to be true or not. But can you stay right here where you actually can influence things? Can you bring your best to this? And when you do that, the overarching burden of the challenge gets mitigated. It just really does. Can I do this thing right now for the next minute or two? I don't care what the challenge is. You can do that. You can do just about, I always hate when people say that. You can do the end of a workout. They're like, you can do anything for a minute. That's not true at all. But for right now, for this environment that you're in, this challenge that you're experiencing, can you bring your best self to that? Again, not your best self in a perfect state. Bring the best version of what you got right now to that right now for the next 30 seconds to a minute. Most people go, yes, I can do that for 30 seconds to a minute.
Let's move on to our second of 3 quotes. Here it is.
Here it is the natural instinct, and here is control. You are to combine the two in harmony. If you have one to the extreme, you will be very unscientific. If you have another to the extreme, you become all of a sudden a mechanical man, no longer a human being. So it is a successful combination of both. So therefore, it's not pure naturalness or unnaturalness. The ideal is unnatural naturalness or natural unnaturalness.
Pure naturalness or unnaturalness. The ideal is unnatural naturalness or natural unnaturalness. This is one of those things, I listened to this 15 times before it started to make sense, but I think that's why it's interesting.
So it's interesting because he uses different words than we use, but we talk about this a lot. The idea behind this is there is a default biological built-in human operating system. That's the natural part. There's a startle flinch response. You see a baseball come in your eye, you startle, meaning you're going to get triggered. That's a physical trigger, but you get also emotionally triggered by certain things. There is this default setting, but humans are really unique in that we can also do this, what he calls a mechanistic control or something. I can't remember what he called it, but what he's referring to there is consciousness. Is really we have the ability to think thoughts about our thoughts. And we're the only ones that can do this. And basically it's like the first one is the amygdala, which is the lizard brain. That's the really animal part. And then there's the prefrontal cortex, which is the cognitive decision-making part of the brain. What he's saying is just don't be all one or the other. It's not, you need us at our best form is this combination of both. It's this nice balance between the two. And they're given to us as tools for us to balance ourselves out and use both. What ends up happening in some scenarios is that certain ones just take huge overriding control, and they should not. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you're like, you effer, that's the animal brain. You feel like you're being attacked, so you fight or flight and respond back, without thinking. It's just there. Then the other one is, should I quit my job? And you're like, okay, the pros and the cons. We have this idea of, I'm going to make this switch here, I go this year, career opportunities, the hours and the level of flexibility, and which one's going to, and you try to rationalize it, and you just totally ignore this gut feeling. We have to bring both those to both of them. When the guy cuts you off and you have that feeling, you go, wait a minute, I'm never going to see that guy again. Am I going to remember this in 5 years? This isn't a big deal. And you think your way out of it. But then when you have the thinking part, where it's pros and cons, you go, what's my gut saying about this thing? What? Can I just listen to that a little bit?
Yeah. The thing that I think about with that quote is that and to your point is, a lot of times we can default to one or the other, where it's actually the work necessary to be both at the same time.
Yeah.
Whether you're an overly analytical person who doesn't listen to their gut, or you're what feels good today and that's what I'm going to do, the actual answer is somewhere in the middle of those two things. And I don't know anybody who's naturally good at both of them. And so wherever we are on that spectrum of natural and unnatural, figuring out what we need to do to bring ourselves back to the middle, I think is the work. And I think it's the work that he's talking about.
Yeah. It's also the essence of what we're trying to do with this show, right? Is share that idea of what is that thing that sets your heart on fire? What is the thing inside of you that thing that creates the furnace burning hot? Let's figure out that. And then you use the analytical brain to like, all right, what are the strategies? What are the tools? What are the tactics that I can bring that to life? And then when things don't go your way, you don't go, well, okay, that didn't work, so now the decision diagram goes this way. It's, well, let's just kind of pull back and sit with your feelings for a little bit and go, what am I feeling right now?
All right. We will wrap that one up there. We've got one more. First quick word of thanks from a few sponsors. We're brought to you this week by Bond Charge. Here's something I've been using a lot lately, the infrared sauna blanket from Bond Charge. This isn't just any sauna blanket. It's made from safe, non-toxic materials, heats rapidly, and emits extremely low frequencies. Plus, it's easy to clean, and you can use it from the comfort of your own home. Head to bondcharge.com to learn more. When you do, you'll see how many people are loving this blanket. Here are just a few reviews that I pulled off the site from Kesa. Well, what can I say? I'm addicted to it. Heats up really fast. I feel a deep healing warmth after using it. It packs up so easily and easy to get back into the bag. This is what Karen says. I've had 26 surgeries in the last 12 years, so I get lots of aches and pains.
Crap.
I know. I have not had my infrared blanket long, but so far it's really helping me feel better and takes away a lot of the stiffness and soreness I usually feel. And it's the last one from Jolie. I had my mind set on a full-size sauna and didn't think the blanket would do it for me. I was wrong. I love it. If you want to be just like them in having better looking skin, improved circulation, and deeper sleep, then get yourself an infrared sauna blanket from Bond Charge. Go to bondcharge.com. That's BONCHARGE.com. Use the code excellence to get 15% off your order, plus free shipping, plus a 12-month warranty. Plus, the sauna blanket and all the Bond Charge products are HSA, FSA eligible, giving you tax-free savings up to 40% off. Again, bondcharge.com. Be sure to use the code excellence.
I will say that, I have a traditional sauna, and one of the big negatives of it, besides the space and the expense, is how long it takes to heat up. So it's one of those things that, like, I'm going to go, I should just go jump in the sauna right now. It's a 30-minute wait process, which people, I don't think, because people are used to going to in a gym, it's just always hot.
It's always on, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a really creative solve for a lot of the sauna problems that are presented to most people.
All right, we're also brought to you this week by Lumen. Let me introduce you to the world's first handheld metabolic coach, Lumen. Visit lumen.me to learn all about the device that measures your metabolism through your breath and then gives you a personalized nutrition plan to improve your metabolic flexibility. I've been using this every day for almost a month, actually probably more than a month now, and I can say that having a day-to-day plan in place has been really helpful in dialing in my nutrition. All I've got to do is breathe into my Lumen first thing in the morning, and I get a readout of what's going on with my metabolism. Why does it matter? Well, your metabolism is your body's engine turning the food you eat into fuel. Optimal metabolic health translates to easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and even better sleep. The key to metabolic health is metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to efficiently switch between using different fuel sources like carbs and fats. That's where Lumen shines. After getting to know you through your breath, Lumen gives you a metabolic flex score that you can track and work to improve. Are you ready to take the next step in improving your health? Go to lumen.me, use the code excellence to get $100 off your Lumen. That is lumen.me. Use the code excellence at checkout for $100 off. Trust me, you will not regret it. Okay, my friend, we've got one more quote from Mr. Bruce Lee. And here it is.
You really, at that time, have gone through quite a lot and understand what life is about. And right now, man, some game is happening, and realizing such that is a game. Fine and dandy, then it's all right. But most people tend to be blinded by it because, if things are repeated too many times, you believe in it and it becomes a habit.
Some game is happening, realizing that it is a game. That's something we've talked about before, this idea that there's a game being played and we are players in it.
Yeah. I think Simon Sinek's done a good job of kind of talking about, and he didn't create these terms either, but a finite versus an infinite game. He talks about it during business, but essentially he's just like in his segue into how businesses should think about operating differently, because we are in an infinite game, meaning unknown competitors, unknown rules, unknown score, unknown time frame. He's kind of like life. It's that shouldn't be just like the throwaway thing there. That's a huge aspect of this. Is life is a infinite game, and we don't know who's winning and losing. and we don't know what the score is, and we don't know how to keep score, and we don't know what the rules are. So we just have to kind of do the best we can with what we've been given. I think that's a lot where like religion comes in, and certainly governance is like they try to put some rules in place to go, hey, this is what it means to live a good life. But I think it's up to us each individually to determine what does playing this game the best look like to me. And we certainly lay out our framework on this show over and over again in terms of we believe it's chasing what truly matters. You define that as you want to. So I pull on this game analogy a lot. Like when I find like myself getting pulled into a certain direction that's not in line with where I feel like I want to be acting, that's a big thing I've leaned into a lot, is just play the game as best you can. Just keep playing this game as best you can, because how are we defining who's doing the best, which is what we so badly want to do. Market share, profit, growth, revenue. And we can do that same thing with our lives. Is it the person that is living in the mountains with the 5-bedroom and 3-car garage overlooking Vail that's winning? But meanwhile, they have substance abuse problems and they're estranged from their kids. And I don't know, and you don't know. So the best thing we can do is sort of go, these are what I think that the objectives of the game are. And we can't just do that based off of what society or education or the media or our families have told us what that is. Our job is to go and figure out for ourselves, with a lot of introspection, what are the things that I value? And if you can figure those out and you're chasing those things with intention and purpose, I think that's a pretty good way to play the game. You know, and I really do like the game analogy. Just as we talked about earlier with Bruce, it makes it lighter. It makes the whole thing a whole lot lighter.
I agree with that. What I think about is Tom Bilyeu, something he says all the time, I think, or at least when I was paying attention to him. Like, his whole thing is you gotta get out of the matrix, right? We're all in this matrix, and it's only when we can get ourselves out of this matrix, out of this game that we're a player in, once we recognize that we are in fact a player in a game, can we start to move chess pieces the way we want to move them and not ourselves be the chess piece in somebody else's game. And so I guess the question would be, how many of us do you feel like have even done the work necessary to recognize that there is a game being played? And I think that's what a lot of what the quote is about. Some game is happening and realizing such that this is a game, fine and dandy, and that's all right. But most people tend to be blinded by it.
Right. I think the people close to me have popped out of this a little bit, at least in a slight awareness level. If I was to take a guess at the masses, I would say no.
Yeah.
You know, over the weekend, I was listening to Dave Matthews, because I'm old. And are you familiar with the song Ants Marching by Dave Matthews?
If I heard it, I'm sure I would know it immediately. But I am not going to attempt it, because if there's a skill that I am in desperate need of, I would need to get to like 10x before I became mediocre at singing. But it's basically, the premise is they all do it this. I was about to sing. Oh my God. But they all do it the same. They all do it the same. There they go. Watch the ants marching. And it's about these guys that wake up, brush their teeth, put on their tie, go to work, just commute to work, do the thing, come on back. And they haven't popped up and recognized, oh, all these are kind of connected now. They're just kind of in this like default, like, mode of, this is what our animals do. This is, as humans, we just go and you go to work and you do this thing and you don't question it and you just keep going, and success is to be determined. And I think this is really overly emphasized in capitalistic markets. Reading a book like 4,000 Weeks kind of pops the lid off this pretty well, as well as I've ever seen, and gone, whoa, wait a minute. To what end are we doing this thing? Because we can produce more. Why? To be more profitable. Why? To have more stuff. Why? To be more efficient. Why? So we can make more profits. Why? So we can make more things. And that's like the human beings have become ants that just go and do their thing, and they're not really considering the game that could be played, because they're just involuntary participants in someone else's game. So your point is poignant in that
one of the big things is the fact that we're blinded to this thing. And if we can recognize that we have control over a lot more than I think that we give ourselves credit for, certainly the events and circumstances of our life are going to be largely outside of our control. But as we've talked about, the way we respond to those things is ultimately 100% in our control. And the way we respond to the uncontrollable events is the thing that actually dictates our life. So if we get a job and 3 years into it, we find out that we are just a cog in a machine and we find no value or purpose to this thing, you're not an ant. You can choose to leave that colony and go find another one that does give you more fulfillment.
We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody there, for listening. Thank you for your ratings and your reviews. Thank you for your questions. If you want to get a question into a future episode, head to www.chasingexcellence.email. Get on the list. We'll send out a link to a form every single week. You can ask your questions, and we'll do our best to get it into a future episode. Ben and I will be back soon for a brand new episode of Chasing Excellence.